I am your organizer for tonight, and I'm going to take a few moments to get everybody set up. We are recording this session so it can be shared and watched after it is over with. We have some new faces, so I'm going to take a moment and do a quick orientation to the platform. And I welcome all the new faces, Lions, Tatiyee staffers, and parents alike who have not been on our GoToWebinar before. And I'm going to take a moment here to show you how to use it so that all voices can be heard. So this is your control panel that you are working with. And I'll put on my arrow so I can follow. So button number 1, if you want the controls out of the way, this little arrow here will move the controls out of your way. So if it's in your way, get rid of them. Button number 2 is our microphone. So right now you're muted. I'm going to ask all of our audience members to unmute yourselves. I also have you muted. And when we ask for questions, if you have already unmuted yourself, then when I call on you, will unmute you and you can speak right away. We don't have to waste time saying, okay, line so-and-so, you're unmuted. So please make sure that you're not self-muted. It would help the process later. It should be a green or at least unself-muted here, and it would help me a great deal. Button number 3 is if you want to have the full screen effect, rather than just the couple of people, you can do that, particularly on laptops or maybe tablets, not on phones. There'll be except for this, no screen sharing tonight. Button number 4 is your hand raising button. So when you raise your hand, you'll be recognized. If I have several people or Lion Barb does under written questions, I will recognize several. I'll say, first is Lion Jim, then Lion Fred, and let you know what the order is for the first couple people, so you know when it's your time to speak and you'll be ready for your brief question. Button number 5, you'll notice there's a handouts area, and you'll see the little triangle here. If you click that, there are 2 handouts. There's a copy of this form. There was also a packet entitled Special Session Info Packet. That has the letter from Lion Everett. It has an attachment that came with his letter and another letter that was submitted. So that packet is there, and I will also try to make it available. I will make it available on the website if you don't get it tonight, but it is under handouts. If you click it, it will download to your computer. It's only about 3 or 4 pages, so it's not a whole lot of printing if you wish to print it. Number 6 and number 7 here are your question box. Number 7 is where you write in your question, hit enter. Number 6, you will see your question and then the answer. If Barb writes an answer, CC Barb, or she will call it to the attention of our host, moderator Lion Phil, who then have it addressed. So we're going to try to make sure that all of you are heard. So as long as you're unmuted and so forth, we can move this quickly. And if you have any problems, you're welcome to submit those as well, and I'll be happy to provide private technical support as needed. Just bear in mind, I do have about 69 people tonight, so we will get to your questions. Just please be patient and don't raise your hand up and down, up and down. If your hand's up and I'll see it, I promise to get with you. That's all the time I'm going to take from you because Phil's got a lot to do, so I'm going to hide myself and turn this over to PDG Lion Phil.
All right. Am I there, Brian?
I hear you. I don't see you yet. I'm sending you a request to put your camera on.
All right.
There you are.
Let me adjust this a little bit. All right. Welcome, everyone. This is a first time for me moderating something like this. So bear with me and don't be too angry or upset when everything goes wrong. I'm kind of new using GoToMeeting. I usually use Zoom, so this is not my go-to format that I use. This is going to be, I'm only the moderator. I have a couple of ground rules. We're going to have a 3-minute limit on your question. Hopefully 3 minutes is fine. I ask that all of your questions be polite and all of them be civil and respectful. Remember, everyone in this room is on the same team. Every one of us is a member of Lions. And we all need to understand that. And we're here on 2 state projects, both of which have been heavily supported by the entire state Lions organization for many, many years. I do not want someone doing a speech tagged with a question mark at the end. All right, these need to be fair questions, be respectful questions. If anyone gets out of line, Brian's just going to mute you. And hopefully that is not going to happen. My expectation is it won't happen. My expectation is this is going to be a very successful informational meeting for people to understand how we got where we are and what the problems are and what's being done to resolve it. And actually things look like they're going to get resolved. So things are looking pretty up. This should be a positive meeting. So with that, what I want you to do is raise your hand if you have questions. Brian will see you. There's also a mark on the right side of your board with a hand that you can hit. You can also write out your questions if you want using the icons on the right side. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Everett. Everett wrote this letter. It's highly unusual that we do something like this based on one Lion's concern, but I want everyone to know it's more than one person's concern. And Everett's letter was kind of the one that did that. We said, you know, we've got to do something to address this and stop the rumors and stop the, mainly to stop the rumors and get things going forward so we're all in lockstep going forward together as a team. All right, so Everett, are you there? Is Everett there?
Everett, you need to go ahead and unmute yourself. You are there and you can turn on your microphone on your own. I don't have you muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, just to clarify, I'm the secretary of the Pine Top Lions Club, and I have been in consultation with the officers of my club. So the letter is actually, as if you have read the letter, you'll notice that the officers all, signed on to it at the bottom. So I just want to clarify that this isn't strictly coming from me, although I did a major part of the writing of it. I do want to say the recent email from our Pine Top Lions officers came about due to the recent involvement of the current Camp Tatiyee landlords, the LFA, as they began promoting zoning changes to the Tatiyee land exchange property over the past year. And we're talking about the entire 344-acre parcel, approximately 44 acres of which is the land that Camp Tatiyee sits on. And there's Camp Grace adjacent to that, which is 20 some acres. And then there's a large parcel behind and out to the road and so forth that now belongs to developer Brett Coate. So there have been zoning issues coming to our Pine Top Lakeside Town Council especially over the last year or 6 months to a year. These changes are spelled out in our email to the MB21 Council. The LFA deserves much credit for completing the Tatiyee land exchange with the U.S. Forest Service over a 20-year span. But since the completion of that exchange about 2 years ago, it's the opinion of the Pine Top Lions officers that it's time to turn the page and for these 2 state projects to abide by the agreement laid out in 2012 and reported in the April 2012 Canyon State Lion, which is an attachment at the end of the email. We're just Lions. We've not been very involved with our district level activities or served on the boards of state projects, largely due to the circumstances of the travel distance to district and multiple district events. But we have been involved, as we should be, in supporting Camp Tatiyee, the state project in our own backyard. Or you might consider it our front yard because those of you who have been to Camp Tatiyee know that it's kind of the gateway to the town of Pinetop Lakeside. The sign of entry into Pinetop Lakeside is very close to Camp Tatiyee. So we like to think of it as the gateway to Pinetop Lakeside, our town. We sincerely hope the issues addressed in our email can be resolved for the good of greater Lionism. Recent events have left a cloud of uncertainty around the future of Camp Tatiyee. Will it remain where it has thrived and grown since its founding in 1958? Or will Camp Tatiyee need to look to relocate elsewhere in the future? This possibility has been suggested by current members of the LFA board, even in a statement in front of our Pinetop Lakeside Town Council on October 15, as the LFA Camp Tatiyee's landlord spoke in favor of rezoning Camp Tatiyee to Commercial 1 or Commercial Light zoning over the objection of the Camp Tatiyee director and board members and myself. And as noted in my letter, this zoning approval actually did happen by a 6-1 vote that evening, October 15, by the Pinetop Lakeside Town Council, by a recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission. These issues have been reported in our local press, the White Mountain Independent, over several issues in the past 6 months or more. Reporter Barbara has been on that story, and that can be found in WMICentral.com if anyone's interested in looking at the articles on that. And that's also listed in the email that I sent out previously.
Yeah, Everett, I hate to do this, but we're running out of time, so if you could.
I got one last statement. Okay,
Right.
as Pinetop Lions who live here, we want to uphold the good name of Lionism in our community by seeking resolution to any differences and promote the security of Lions Camp Tatiyee for generations to come.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any questions, Brian?
Sorry, I was muted myself. There are no hands up yet, but please go ahead and begin to submit questions now, people. Thank you. Back to you, Phil.
All right, I will, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask each side to speak, and I'm gonna start with the LFA, because I know on the zoning issue, that they have their position, and then I'm gonna ask the camp board to give us their view on the zoning, but do this very respectfully. Don't make it
Excuse
personal.
me, DG Phil. Philip Castrovinci just put his hands up. Do you want me to wait to take the questions until after the statements are made?
Yeah.
Or should I do the question first?
Let's start with Phil first.
Okay, Lion Phil, I'm unmuting you, and you are self-muted, which I asked you to please unmute yourself and make your question quickly. Lion Phil, you're unmuted.
Yeah, okay. I'd like to understand why the camp feels that they may have to move from the site where they are at. It is also my understanding that if the camp wants to expand in any way, that the zoning or the rezoning would have to happen because they are now grandfathered into the standing zoning as it is right now.
Okay, so thanks, Phil. Can we have someone from the camp have the president designate who they want to answer that question?
Of course, this is Lion Kathleen. Lion Bill, do you want to handle that question, please? I believe there were actually 2 questions.
Yeah, he had 2, but can you restate them real quick, Phil?
Oh, I muted Phil. Hold on one second.
Well, Kathleen, one question was, and maybe you can answer the second question.
Okay.
It was, he thinks that the current zoning that the camp is under and all of the other land prohibits the camp from expanding and adding new buildings. And so why wouldn't you approve new zoning that lets you do that? I apologize, Phil, if I got that wrong, but I think that's the gist of what.
I just unmuted Lion Phil just in case.
Okay, yeah. Again, the two questions were, well, I'll give you the second one first, is that my understanding that if the camp wants to expand, then rezoning would have to happen because under the current zoning, they are grandfathered in and would not be allowed to do that. That's question one.
Thank you.
Let's just answer that question. So as a standalone question, Kathleen.
Yes, it's kind of a twofold answer. One, the C1 zoning that has been approved actually allows for different, my understanding how to put this simply, different like safe zones, different buffers, that kind of thing around the property. It allows other businesses to be a lot closer. It actually allows the property to kind of be engulfed, so to speak. And there are ways to actually expand and build on property, even if the zoning doesn't just automatically make it happen. You can always ask. And we actually have been able to do that in the past. Within the last couple of years when we built the new building, we were not technically zoned to be able to do that. We got permission from the city and built that building. So that is our concern, is the implications of this, both to our parcel and also to some of the parcels that are around us, and the city and just in general. That's kind of in a nutshell. Sherman might be able to be more specific if Lion Phil needs something more on that particular topic. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, my first question now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Fine.
my first question was, why does the camp feel that they are in jeopardy of losing the site?
I will answer. This is Lion Kathleen. I'm happy to answer that question. I don't think that the term, we feel that we are in jeopardy of losing our site. We have no intention of going anywhere, and that's not our goal. But what I'm saying and what I'm feeling is that, and what we as a board feel, is that if you continually have land around us go commercial, not left at low zoned density type situations, that we could potentially be in a position where we'd have to make that statement. We don't intend on going anywhere. The city doesn't want us to go anywhere. The people in the city want us to stay and be a part of their community. But we have unfortunately heard in meetings that that's always something that's brought up a lot of times when we discuss different things, is that, oh, but wait a minute, you might actually have to move. So I would say, Lion Phil, that's not our intention to ever leave the
Kathleen,
city.
I don't believe that is anyone's intention. LFA couldn't possibly ask you to move, I don't think, because the land right now belongs to the Lions of Arizona,
No.
and LFA is the land manager of it, from what I understand.
Lion Phil, the title to the land is in their name, not ours and not the Lions of Arizona. It's titled to the Lions Foundation of Arizona. If I'm
Yeah, but
incorrect,
the Lions Foundation is the Lions of Arizona. They don't exist without the Lions of Arizona. They have no other purpose other than managing the various properties that they do manage. Is that not true? I'd like to hear from somebody on the LFA as well.
I'll mute myself.
All right, let's, Dave, can someone on LFA answer Phil's question?
Paul Randall. Am I unmuted? Paul Randall, I'd like you to
Okay,
answer
you're
that.
heard.
I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
You wanted to get an answer to the question. There are two things. One is the property, all 344 acres, was changed recently to residential low zoning. With residential low zoning, and we're not talking about Camp Tatiyee right now because it's been rezoned, but with residential low zoning, there would be no availability to run anything at Camp Tatiyee with the exception of the 8-week camp. Now, to allow the camp technically doesn't fit residential low. So that means it's grandfathered in. But grandfathering means that they can only do what they currently were doing prior to the acquisition by the town, which means runs the camp for 8 weeks. It would not allow, and this is per the town attorney, the town manager, and the head of planning and zoning, they would not be able to do anything outside of what they currently are doing, including adding a building, including running a community event, including renting it out to anybody. Nothing of that would be allowed under state law for grandfathering. So when we went to C1 zoning, it was primarily to allow the camp to do what it already had done and what it indicated it was going to try to do in the future. This would allow them to run community events. They could rent their buildings out. They could expand. They could apply to the city so that the city would look at it in planning and zoning if they wanted to add buildings. Now, the other one that you asked about was, hopefully that makes sense. That's why we changed it to C1, because it was the best zoning to allow for future development for the camp.
But what about, if I can interject, but what about outside the camp? Because I think the camp, if I'm right, Kathleen, is concerned with what happens outside of the camp with the other land. Do I have that right, Kathleen? Is that the word?
Yeah, that's probably sufficient. It's, what happens around us potentially affects us and sometimes could affect us greatly. So yes, we do pay attention and we are concerned about the other parcels of land and how they would be used.
Well, is the question, is the concern the zoning that the camp sits on, or is the concern the zoning is changing outside where the camp sits?
Both.
Both? Okay. All right. Sorry to interrupt, Paul. I have to restart my timer because we're taking too long.
That's all right. We don't control the zoning outside of applying for what Camp Tatiyee in the 44 acres was to be rezoned, and it has been rezoned C1. The town is the one who's going to control it. That's what they have public meetings for. They have their own plans as to what they want to do with the land. And the public has every right to speak up, object, recommend. That's what you're going to do with each parcel as their approach to the town, because they're all zoned low residential right now. And if they want to change it, they have to come into the town, they have to come into planning and zoning and make the changes.
Okay, thanks. And I'm sorry, can you address Phil's other question, Paul?
Oh yeah, he asked about whether or not there was any intention of having, and I guess we're only speaking from LFA standpoint, is there any intention of asking Camp Tatiyee to leave or planning on Camp Tatiyee leaving? And the answer is absolutely no. The decision of whether Camp Tatiyee stays or leaves is Camp Tatiyee and the Lions of Arizona. It's not LFA. We spent all these years to make the land available to the Lions of Arizona and to Camp Tatiyee. If somewhere down the road Camp Tatiyee decides to leave because it's in their best interest, that's their choice, and it's a choice of the Lions. It is not LFA's opinion, nor is it their desire whatsoever to have anything other than just support the camp for as long as they want to stay there.
Okay, thanks. Brian says we have a couple of more hands up, so we're going to move on to another question.
Yes. We have a hand up from Mrs. Dee Grogan. Mrs. Grogan, I'm going to unmute you and take your question, please. She's a parent.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
but
we can.
before all of us start, I'd like, if you don't mind, and I didn't do this with Phil, and I should have, identify which club you're with, so at least we have a sense where.
He's a parent from Camp Tatiyee line, DG Phil.
I'm sorry?
I'm a parent.
From
My
Camp Tatiyee.
child attended Camp Tatiyee for many, many years. And so I'm just a concerned parent. And the only question I guess that I really have is that I'm a little confused as to why any of this is even occurring, since there was apparently a joint statement from Camp Tatiyee and LFA Land Exchange that actually talked about various things being done, and everybody was apparently on a consensus of it. And for whatever reason, back in 2012, all of this was supposed to go into a land trust for the Lions, the Camp Tatiyee, and it was supposed to have been done, and we are now at 2020, which is 8 years later, and we're still dealing with this issue. So I'm confused. Why wasn't that original agreement ever finalized and has come about? Because here we are 8 years later dealing with the same kinds of things that were apparently agreed upon in 2012. So I'm a little confused by that.
Thanks for your question. That's a good question. I want to thank you for attending. I want to encourage you to join Everett with the Lions Club. I think you'd be a great addition. I'm very glad you have been active with the camp. So let's start. That goes back to 2012, before my time. That was Mark Paquette who did it. Let's start with, I'll let the LFA side go first this time and follow up with the camp. And 3.5 minutes for you guys. And remember my admonition, be very polite, no name calling. So,
I'm going to let Sandy answer that. Sandy, will you answer that, please?
I'm unmuted. You want to see me or can I just?
oh, we want to see you. There you go.
All right, now you can see me too. Okay. But don't throw anything at your screen. You're only hurting yourself. Okay. This was a joint meeting and it came out of a meeting I had with Paquette. We were sitting during a conference and I gave him some grief, which people have known me to do. And he threw it right back at me and we both laughed. And I said, why don't we get together and let's get both boards in one room? Would be the moderator? And God bless him, he said yes. So at the end of this meeting, we came up with this concept. It was a dream. And I'm the one that took the notes. So thank you for calling on me. So I'm going back and looking at my original notes from that 2012 meeting. It was in January. So we asked some questions. Who will own the camp when the exchange is complete? Both boards agreed that the camp should be put into a land trust. So let me just stop right there, because 6 years later, this came up again, and we called the best legal brains, including one who's on the screen right now, and we said, how are we going to put a trust together? Because we're not sure how to do that. And the answer we got from that meeting, which happened February 9th, 2018, at another joint board session with line attorneys, including Phil here, Lion Phil, we were told that a trust is really difficult to do and a foundation is better. And it was by the suggestion of Camp Tatiyee that we met with these attorneys and got their legal opinion. But to go back to the 2012 meeting, there was more to it than just the trust part. The other thing was Mark Paquette was a Lion and he agreed to be the moderator and continued to work with us. And he left Lion shortly thereafter. That didn't help the process. Both clubs agreed that there would be no liens or mortgages put on the property once the exchange is complete. The exchange still isn't complete. I'm reading down the different points. Point number 3, both boards will work together to obtain remaining funds for the exchange. It's been pretty much a one-sided affair. LFA, as you know, completed the acquisition of the land, and they had to borrow a lot of money in order to get that done. And I'll let you ask the camp how much they put into this effort.
No.
I'm not going to go into that because that's not what you asked me to do.
Thank
So,
you.
number 4 is to ensure that the Lions Foundation is in a position of being debt-free once the exchange has been completed.
You need to finish up.
What I earlier said.
Wrap up.
Back up.
Wrap up. Give you 5 seconds.
Well, sure. So I think point 6 is the most important one. Stop the dissension between both boards and project a united front for the successful completion of the camp. And that has been a theme before, since, and today. How's
Okay.
that? A good wrap? Thank you.
That's a good wrap. Let's turn it over 3.5 minutes to the camp. But before you start, let me just tell you what Sandy said. When I was district governor, I called a meeting of lawyers in Lyons. I was there, Azim Hamid, who's a real estate lawyer, Ron Wilson, who is a top trust lawyer, who's now retired. Both of them are in my club. Tom Price, who is now past district governor, is a lawyer up in Cayman. And mainly based on what Ron said, the trust wouldn't work, and we suggested a foundation with both projects putting people on the board of that foundation. So that was, what, 2 years ago? I'm kind of dating myself, time went by fast. So that's just background information for what Sandy was talking about. And the camp did not ask for it, Sandy. That was me as district governor, just causing trouble. All right, we will turn it over to the camp.
I will speak briefly, and then I'd like Sherman to speak to the point as well. What I can tell you is that that particular meeting, we did not have representation at, unfortunately. So we only saw minutes or information after the fact. So to speak to Dee Dee's point, we weren't part of the discussion as far as that goes as to why the trust wouldn't work. We were just given the information that the trust wouldn't work. And that was that.
And
thank you, Phil. I didn't mean to talk over you. I apologize.
all right, yeah.
So that's what I can speak to as far as that goes. So all I can say is that people have told us that the trust wouldn't work. I don't know why it wouldn't necessarily work. The document that Sandy was reading from, everyone has, it's in the packet that you can download. It was at the end of Everett's letter, and it was the item that was published in the Canyon State Lion. So you can obviously see that at that particular point. Sherman, as far as I have never had conversations or heard information about this foundation with both boards on it. I may have just been out of that loop. Sherman, if you want to speak to that, I don't have knowledge of it, to be completely honest.
Yeah, like Kathleen said, we weren't invited to the meeting and we found out about it after the fact. So what we know is that report that came out to us.
Okay, if I can ask
This
one.
isn't about that meeting so much as I think the parent had a question, more what happened to the framework that was designed in 2012.
Yes.
So I'd like to hear from the camp. I think the parent would like to hear from the camp of where that went.
This is Sherman. I can speak to that because I talked to Mark Paquette yesterday. We talked about whether it was approved, and it seems as though neither board ever signed off on that 2012 agreement. And therefore, his opinion was it wasn't a legally binding type of contract. And, he's the one that was the moderator and he's an attorney. So that's where we are as far as that 2012 agreement.
Let me give you some free legal advice. As a lawyer, I'll tell you, if you're ever in a settlement conference, this is exactly why no one gets to leave until they sign that document. All right? No one leaves unless you sign, and this is an example. All right, because this is not uncommon. People leave and it doesn't get signed, it doesn't get done. It's unfortunately common. So don't pick fights over it. This just happens. All right, Brian, do we have more questions?
Lion Barb, Dayla and I are going to alternate. She has a written question. We're going to go back and forth. There are some people who are in line. You're not being ignored, but Barb has a written question, and we're just going to alternate to make sure everybody's recognized. So, CC Barb.
Okay, give me a minute. Oops. Give me a minute here. Hold on. Can you hear me here?
Yes.
Yes, Barb, you're
Okay.
on.
Just a minute. My window will not open. Just a minute. Hold on.
And then I have, after Barb, I have Lion Joe and down the line, Lion Phil again in line. So there are people in line. So I want you to know you are recognized.
Okay. This is a question from Darren, who's on staff at camp. Is a state project able to speak for all Lions of Arizona? What was just stated sounded like they believe a state project such as LFA is able to speak for all Arizona Lions.
Okay, good question. Start with the camp this time.
Thank you. I don't feel that I speak for all the Lions of Arizona, with the exception of if there's something involving the camp that I can answer. Otherwise, no. They elected me to the board of directors for Camp Tatiyee, and that's my focus and my passion.
Okay. Dave, who's?
Okay, Kathleen's absolutely right. I speak for the LFA board. She speaks for the Camp Tatiyee board. We do not speak technically for the Lions of Arizona unless there's something that we have that involves everything for the Lions of Arizona. So technically speaking, we speak for the LFA board, and all of the members of the board are elected by the Lions of Arizona.
Okay. All right, and next question. That was an easy one. That was good.
Okay, whoop, I just lost him. My next person here is PIP rather. Joe Preston has a question. So PIP, Joe, the floor is yours, sir.
It's actually Joni.
Oh,
Can you
Joni,
hear me?
excuse me. Yes, I'm sorry.
We're on the same computer, and it was actually me who wanted to ask the question. I mean, absolutely no disrespect to anyone, but I was very surprised that someone who is not a Lion and involved in this situation was on this meeting, because this is like airing our laundry, so to speak. And I kind of felt like this is something we should be dealing with and coming to some sort of resolution without all of our camper parents knowing. And I don't know, I just was very surprised that it was open to more than just Lions.
Yeah, I didn't know either. But, you know, we really are pretty transparent. We don't have anything to hide. I think it's good we have someone that active and that involved who's interested. And I don't think anything being said here is bad for anyone to know, but I think we're a very transparent organization. And hopefully everyone can grab her by the collar and rope her into joining. So, Dave, do you have any comments about that?
Well, I was a little surprised that we had other people besides Lions, but you know, as you said, we're transparent. If these people have an interest in it, I really don't have any problems with it.
Okay, and Kathleen?
I'm sure she gave her the information.
All of our, I'm sorry?
Do you have a comment, any input?
Yes, our board meetings are all open, our club meetings are all open, so I don't see any reason why these types of things wouldn't be open as well.
Hey, when the board for Camp Tatiyee meets, do you guys meet at the camp, or is it open to Pine Top generally, the general population, or are they closed to only Lions?
I send out meeting information at least a month ahead, and they can the members of the board can share it with whomever. We've been meeting on Zoom obviously since March, and those links are available to whomever wants them.
Okay, before the pandemic, did you guys meet at the camp?
We had one meeting a year at camp, yes.
Okay, did parents of campers tend to come?
Occasionally.
Okay, all right. Okay, next question, Brian or Bart.
Lion Phil, may I quickly address that as the organizer?
Yes.
When I sent out the notices on this, when I organized the meeting, I used our private Facebook and our MailChimp. Once I send out notices, those who receive them are able to forward them to who they wish. So that is how I set it up, and that's how it takes place. I send out notices. From that point, the registration link can be shared. And that's all I'll say.
Like I said, I think this is an informational meeting, so, you know, I think it's, I mean, I'll let Dave.
Just the Lions Foundation of Arizona meets on the same time every month. Of course, we've been using Zoom for the last 4 or 5 months, but we either have Zoom meetings or we go ahead and meet at the Lions Foundation of Arizona building, and anybody that can't make it can phone in. So we have an open meeting and everybody knows when it's at, and it's open to anybody, so there's no problem.
Okay, good. All right, next question.
Barb, do you have any written questions?
No written questions.
Okay. I have one here that may be a challenge. Lion Robert Gallant, you have a question, but I'm not showing that you have audio. If you cannot turn on your microphone, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and do it in writing, and I'll call on somebody else while you're writing your question, because I'm not showing that you have audio. So if you can unmute, go ahead. But if not, I'm going to move on to somebody else. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on. I'll let Robert write his in writing to Barb, and let me know when you have it. I got Lion Phil and Lion Dee Dee who are waiting for secondary questions. Lion Phil, thanks for your patience. I've unmuted you. Would you please briefly ask your second question or third question?
The question I asked the first time, I seem to have gotten 2 different answers. One from the Camp Tatiyee, the other one from LFA. And I'm sorry, they don't match. How can I get one question that's a very simple question and get 2 different answers to it? From what I can see, no one is asking or saying that the camp has to move or anything else. So that should take that out of the equation completely. My question really comes down to the ownership of the camp. Hypothetically, Kathleen, if the camp is turned over to Camp Tatiyee, does that mean that Camp Tatiyee owns the camp? Number one. Number two, the board of Camp Tatiyee is made up not only of Lions, but outside people as well. Does that mean that the board can do something with the land that they have ownership of at that point without the approval of Lions in Arizona?
Thank you, Lion Phil. I was just writing notes. I wasn't trying to ignore you. I believe this. I'll answer the first part of your question, and then I will refer to Sherman to answer the second part about the board. What we would like is title to the land so that the land and the buildings are all owned by Camp Tatiyee. That's our ultimate goal, is to have our name on the title. Sherman, can you speak to the makeup of the board and how that works?
Sure. And one of our goals, the reason why we want both of them in our name is capital grants are impossible when you don't own the land that the building's going to be built on. The grantors are uncomfortable basically funding a trailer park. On the board composition, yes, we can have outside directors, but they are always in a minority. The rules for the numbers is 6 out of 24. So there's only going to be a maximum of third. And the rules for a quorum state that it must be a quorum of lions. So you can't have the 6 of them and a couple lions show up at a meeting and have a quorum. So it was designed to prevent outside influences from taking over. And that's what we got from Lions International and a couple of foundations in California.
Thank you,
And
Sherman.
we voted, the Lions of Arizona voted to authorize Camp Tatiyee to do that. That was a statewide election that we agreed to do. Okay. All right, Dave, your turn.
For what?
Answer the question that Lion Phil asked.
Okay,
No,
because I thought it was answered.
how you get 2 different answers to the same question.
Okay, Phil, repeat your question, please.
Whoops, I just muted him. Hold on a second, please. Phil, I've unmuted you. You have to unmute. Stop muting yourself. You need to unmute yourself, please, Phil. Thank you, Phil. There you go.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what my first question was. I'm not sure.
I can
All
tell.
I know is with the question that I asked, I got one answer from Kathleen and I got another answer from, not from Dave, but who's the other gentleman?
Paul Rand.
Paul. Yeah, I'm sorry, Paul. Yeah, and the answers didn't match, okay? But I do have another question, if I may.
Why not?
And this can go to Sherman. The Constitution of the camp, Constitution and bylaws, that could be made up by the camp, your people on the board, correct?
Yeah, this is Sherman. We come
Okay.
up with changes and the Lions have to vote for it at the annual convention, usually in May, to approve what we have.
So you're saying that there is absolutely no possibility that the board could recommend that they put more people on without the approval of the Lions?
You are absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I think they could ask, but they do it without the statewide Lions voting for it, Phil. So they can't just unilaterally do it. They can come to us and ask for that permission. Is that right, Dave?
Yeah, if I may, one of the things that happened was Melvin Jones has also the same thing where they can have outside people on their board. But both Camp Tatiyee and Melvin Jones have put in stopgaps. So basically, Lions will control the boards. And that was well done when they came out with the way it was. So there's no problem there at all.
Yeah, it's so. Do you understand that, Phil?
Oh, I turned him off again. Sorry, I was trying to.
Okay, Brian, we have one
Phil,
question.
before I bring you the next question, one thing we did not do is Lion President Kathleen and Lion Board President Dave did not introduce who their panelists were briefly, so everyone in the audience knows who the panelists are. And I know Phil was confused, and it occurred to me that maybe we want to do that.
So Dave, you go first.
Okay, our 2 panelists are Paul Randall and Sandy Schiff. Paul Randall and Sandy Schiff and myself have been involved from the start, over 20 years in this land exchange and getting things done. So they are most experienced. I had a break in my service when I served as international director, but I have been involved with it for over 20 years also.
And what Lions clubs are you affiliated with?
I'm affiliated with the Wickenburg Lions Club. Paul Randall's with the, what is that called now? The Phoenix Lions Club. And Sandy Schiff is with the Tucson Breakfast Lions Club.
Okay, Kathleen, your turn.
Yeah, I'm Kathleen King. I'm the president of the board, and I'm with the Flagstaff Noon Lions Club. Also with me is Sherman McCutcheon, the Chandler Lions Club, and past council chair Bill Menard with Mesa Leisure World.
But Bill used to be with, was he with your club in Flagstaff?
Yeah, he was with Flagstaff Sunrise. I was with Flagstaff Sunrise for a while, and I've moved to Flagstaff Noon recently.
Thank you. Okay, Brian, next question.
Okay, I have 3 people lined up. Lion Pam initially submitted by writing. This is Lion Pam Swanson, Camp Director and Lion. And I'm unmuting you, Pam, so please go ahead and ask your question. Pam, you are self-muted. You got to unmute yourself. Other speakers, please unmute yourselves as well. Pam, you're still muted.
There we go.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify that the 2 parents that are in here are on our strategic planning committee and know what they're talking about. So I just wanted to clarify on why they would be here. They've been on those for years, and they've also been to different various meetings in town.
Well, we would love to have them join as Lions, just so you know.
One was and just is not in a position to be right now.
All right, okay, well, but I'm glad they're here participating and they're interested. So go ahead with your question, Pam, and thanks for clarifying.
Okay. That was, she just made her comment and she muted.
Oh,
Okay, next person I have is Gordon Richards. He's the maintenance and manager up at camp. And I've unmuted Gordon. You have to unmute yourself as well.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. My name is Gordon. I'm the site manager here at Camp Tatiyee. I'm also a resident, newly resident, about a year into it. I've attended most 95% of the meetings here at Pine Top Lakeside Chamber. When I was just listening to a gentleman, I can't remember his name, I didn't write his name down, but said that we can only do 8 weeks of camp under the current zoning, which my understanding and everybody else's was that we could still fulfill our obligation to nonprofit organizations. So it wouldn't just be the 8 weeks. So when you say 8 weeks, maybe that's for the general camp, but we can still do nonprofit organizations, which would be grandfathered in. So, I mean, I just want to make sure that was clarified. By my take on what was actually said at the meetings was that grandfathered in means that we can do what we've been doing under the Forestry Service, but now that we're changed to a C1, it does make it a lot easier. But we were not, I mean, the Airbnbs, we're not able to do, and we can't do big, large groups that are not nonprofit organizations. But we can still do the work of nonprofit organizations. We can actually be there for other church camps, like be a church camp. We can be all sorts of stuff other than like nonprofit. We can't be as a, what I'm trying to say is, we can still do our duties as a camp for nonprofit organizations. And that's all I really wanted to say.
okay, all right. Okay. Do you, I think it's LFA's turn. Do you want to say anything in response to that? It's not really a question, it's a statement.
Paul Randall, would you like to address that?
Did I get unmuted?
There you go, you're on.
Maybe. It's not important to get into a debate one way or the other because I'm not a zoning attorney. I don't understand. This is what was explained to me by the head of planning and zoning for the town. But whether or not you could still run some of your church facilities and camp facilities, it's kind of moot now because you are C1. So there's no real reason to get into it. What you couldn't do is you couldn't run Airbnbs, you couldn't run any other rental facilities or anything else, but that's my understanding. But that's fine. Now at C1, you can do that kind of thing, and you can apply to the town to do it.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, Lion Barb, do you have a question or shall I go?
Yes, I do. I have a question from a camp parent. I'm a camp parent and have laryngitis. My questions are, if the LFA truly wants to unify, why do they want an RV park right next to the campground? Unify means to do what's best for Camp Tatiyee. This land was gifted for a safe, inclusive place for special needs children to always have a place to go to camp with. What is the benefit for Camp Tatiyee and their campers to have an RV campground next door? I would like to know who on this call to identify themselves if they are making any profit or future profits from the selling of the land to a developer. Otherwise, if no one says they are getting financial gain, then why are they selling land? Whose best interest is this in? I think everyone is forgetting that.
All right, that violates the rules because it's an accusation with a question mark. All right, so let me rephrase the question. Is LFA putting in or allowing to be put in some sort of RV park? That's the question. Okay.
I can answer that. That's easy. We had a partner for the land exchange that we needed to have or the exchange would never go through. What happened was he acquired the whole parcel and then allowed us to take the parcel for so much money, which he went ahead and actually donated part of it. So what we have is we have our acreage that the camp sits on. That belongs to the Lions of Arizona. The rest of the acreage we have nothing to do with, and they could do anything they want because we have no control on it.
Okay, Kathleen?
That wasn't necessarily, the ultimate question wasn't necessarily directed at me. I can understand partially the spirit of what was being asked, and just that I think it confused some people in the city. And I actually fielded phone calls from the Pinetop Lakeside. I actually was in contact at one point with the journalists that had been writing the articles for clarification, because the terms Lions of Arizona and Lions Foundation of Arizona confused some people. And they had asked me if I knew how to clarify the difference between the two, and I did my best. So that may be why that question came about, because the Lions Foundation of Arizona did have members at the town council meetings, voicing their opinions in favor of different things that were going on with the partners' parcels. And at times, and I'm being completely transparent, at times it was in contradiction to what Camp Tatiyee was voicing at those same meetings. So that might be where the confusion and the question might have come from.
Okay. Let me ask the other question. Is anyone in Lions getting even a dime from an RV park going up on that land?
I'm sorry I'm laughing. You cannot believe how much it's cost. We have not received one single dime in regard to that.
Okay. All right. Next question.
Okay, I have two people in line. I ask Mrs. Grogan, Dee Dee, to please go ahead, and I'm going to unmute you first. Then after her, I have Lion Fred. Lion Dee Dee, you're unmuted.
Okay, thank you. First, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this because I have been a proponent of the Lions Camp for many, many, many years. I believe my first introduction with the Lions Camp would have been back in 1997. And so, yes, I want to thank you all for allowing the Camp One to be there and offering an opportunity for a group of folks who otherwise don't get the same opportunities that the rest of us get to have. One of the questions that I have, because I'm still trying to understand a little bit in regards to the bigger parcel and the fact that does LFA and the Lions Camp own that, or is it this other person who owns it, in which case how do we acquire, or what kind of funds need to be raised to secure that remaining portion so that we can ensure that the camp will not have other things sort of edging up to the property, causing concerns, not just for parents, but for Lions as well as the community.
Okay, good call. Thank you. We will start with the camp because I think it's the camp's turn.
That's honestly a question that's better answered by the panelists from LFA because it deals with the stuff with the partner. Thank you. No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I will answer the question by saying we have no control over the area outside of the camp. That is controlled by a developer who assisted us in getting the camp. Without him, we would never have gotten the property, period.
Dave, because I've heard this story from Paul, maybe Paul can give a very quick explanation to the parents how this happened. Because this goes way back when.
Right. Paul, are you there?
Paul does a really good job of explaining it.
I'll try to explain it as simply as I can.
I'm going to give you 3 minutes.
All right, I'll do it faster than that if I can. The Forest Service wanted to exchange all 344 acres of land, all in one parcel. We set about trying to acquire our portion of it, but we were required to acquire all 344 acres. So we brought in a joint venture partner who also had land for the exchange. The way the structure is set up is the joint venture partner acquired all of the land, all 344 acres, and then turned around and donated 44 acres to LFA. LFA put up land, therefore we got notes from him that he's now since paid off. But the reason he donated the land was because he got a tax write-off. So the only land that we actually physically acquired as Lions is the 44 acres. The remaining 300 acres all belong to the joint venture partner. And it's his job to do with it as he wishes.
Did the camp or the Lions ever control all 344 acres?
No. Never controlled it at all. Because the 344 acres was far above and beyond our capability to acquire.
So just so, if I'm right, we leased the land from the Forest Service, right?
That's
way back when.
That's correct.
Yeah, and so what happened to the parents is the camp was on leased land from the Forest Service. The Forest Service decides we're getting out of Pine Top and you guys better figure this out, and we can't sell you land. Under federal law, they were required to do an exchange of land, and they would not do 40 acres. They were doing the entire piece in one deal, and that's how we end up in the mess we're in today. All right, next question.
Okay, our next person in line, Dee Dee, thank you. Dee Dee, thank you. I'm taking you down. Our next person here is Lion Fred Tauntaun from up in Flagstaff. Lion Fred, I've unmuted you.
Well, thank you. I've been a participant in this since it started, and our club has been extremely active in direct involvement with the club. and we have put in monies for what we understood was going to be for enlarging the camp. And just to give you an idea, this year we put in $20,000 for the camp operations, and we put in $30,000 for camp sponsorship. So we've been extremely active, and our club, and I'm the charter president of way past, way back there. Anyway, our intention is to continue that camp, and I'm confused a little bit why there's so much dissension between the camp and LFA. So I know that I can't assist too much there, but we are definitely wanting that camp to continue, and we want it to continue so we can be out in front as a Lion. It's a good exposure for Lions of Arizona. So I think I'll just stop there. Just that, I'm quite concerned about the dissension, or why the two can't get together and work this out. And we're afraid of things that I don't understand. Thank you.
Okay. We'll go back to the Lions because they skipped their beat last time. We'll do the camp start.
Honestly, Lion Fred, I think that if I can be blunt, dissension comes down to two things: money and whose name is on the title. For us, funding is an issue. Our budget's at most 20% Lions donations, and 80% we find our funding elsewhere. And those funding sources are exceptionally important to us. And without the buildings and the title, now that it's not Forest Service, which Forest Service could carry a different weight with grant opportunities, we're really concerned. So blunt, I think that that's the two things.
Okay. Doesn't answer why you guys don't get along, but hey, let's go with it.
Okay, I'm just going to say a couple of things. Everybody is making LFA as the bad guy. We're not the bad guy. We have put a lot of time and a lot of money to acquire the camp. We spent 20 years working with the Forest Service, and it's been a pain. We have also spent a lot of our own money. We have sold property in order to raise funds. We have applied and got a mortgage on our property at 32nd Street in Roosevelt. We're paying that off, but all that money we got was to help get property to do the land exchange. So we have $2 million still in this that we have not received money back for. We want the camp to succeed. That's our number one goal, or we wouldn't have done this right from the start. So if you have any questions about that, I'll be glad to answer them.
Okay. All right, next question.
Okay, I've got a couple of people in line, and Barb has messaged me she has no written questions, so I'll continue. Dee Dee, you have another brief question? I will unmute you. And Pam, please unmute yourself so I can get you next.
Oh, real quick, Brian.
Yes.
John Bliss from the Sunrise Club has been trying to join in, so you might try to figure that out. Sorry to interrupt, but I just got an email.
You have him message me his email, and I'll send him a link because I don't have him on my list here. So.
Okay, I'll forward it to you. Sorry to interrupt you guys. So.
You can actually go on to another question. I don't want to take up all the questions, and I'm still developing mine, but thank you.
Well, thank you, Dee Dee, and please raise your hand if you have a question. Okay, so that next person I've got, and there appear to be no written questions yet, is from Lion Pam Swanson. Lion Pam, you are clear to speak.
Okay, it's not a direct question. It's more, we're not talking about the right issues. The funding for camp to be able to serve comes from over 75% non-Lion, which means that our donors, if our name is not on the title, or the Lions of Arizona as MD21 is not on the title, will not invest in capital and improvement. And we have letters from our funders saying that because they cannot control their investment because it could be liened or sold. That's the real issue. There you have it. The other thing I'm curious about, and this is a question, I was involved in the special council meetings and understood that the idea of the trust was supposed to be restrictive, so that it would take almost all of the Lions to vote and do anything to change it, whether it be a lien, a mortgage, what. So I'm unclear as to why the change to a foundation was made, especially without the camp being involved in the discussion or decision. That's my question.
I can answer that for you, Pam. I just did it unilaterally as district governor because we were getting ready to pay it off. All right, it was coming to a head. And I just wanted the lawyers involved because I didn't want to get recriminations involved. And it was strictly a legal question. What is the best structure for this? And we had Paul, who's there, and he, for the background. And the reason the submission was for the foundation, I can't recall the details why Ron Wilson said don't use a trust, but the idea of the foundation is that you would be able to go get charitable foundations from major charities. And Ron Wilson gets big, big dollars from big charities. And it was his assistance it'd be done as a foundation. All right, that's why it was, so that the money would be held, the property would be in a foundation, and no one would have to worry about it getting lost in foreclosure, getting sold out from under anyone. That was the whole reason for it. Now, the details between a trust and foundation, I don't do that kind of law. But I remember Ron being pretty insistent. I don't know if Tom Price is in on this call, but Tom might remember some more details. But that's why. And, you know, we made as a recommendation. It was kind of an ad hoc committee. Like, hey, you know, lawyers were all part of Lions, all got together, and this is what we recommend. And, you know, you don't have to take our advice. It was free advice. But that's how it came up, Pam. And the goal was to help. I mean, it was to help. It was nothing nefarious about it. It was, how do we get the land so you guys could raise money, and you know, no one's worried about the land getting mortgaged to anybody. So, do you have any follow-up questions, Pam?
I thought she did, but she put her hand down, so I don't think so.
All right.
Oh, wait, no, her hand's up again. She does have a follow-up. Hold on one second. Lion Pam, you're unmuted. Do you have a follow-up, please?
Yes, again, not involved in the discussion, and it's about the camp. And I think that's why we're in the position that we're in now. And I mean, all due respect, that intentions, whether it be LFA, Camp Tatiyee, or leadership, our intentions are good, but it's the lack of communication and not being brought to the table. We have major foundations. I'm talking Piper Foundation and various others who have committed to the camp to be in there, has done training for our board, is sticking by us. We already have all of these things set up. If it was MD21 on that title, that would be fine too. But they're the ones saying it's not going to fly. So I'm just telling you that it sounds to me like the old thing that I used to hear with rumors about the Umbrella Foundation that many of you wanted way back when, before the agreement in 2012. And we've been flying on the agreement of 2012 and doing fine with donors because they understood that we had a commitment to purchase.
Well, Pam, I just tell you, whether it's a trust holding or a foundation, it's not a big difference. It's just not. But, you know, tax-wise and charity-wise, what Ron said, it was a difference. But whether you call it a trust or you call it foundation, it was the same concept. So, I don't know. I can't, you know, you guys weren't there because this was a discussion with lawyers, with Paul to explain the background. You shouldn't be upset about it. So go ahead, Dave.
Okay, one of the things I will mention based on my experiences as a financial advisor, we always found that a foundation could get things done a lot easier than a trust. So I would say that may be one of the problems that they were looking at. I'm going to let Lion Sandy go ahead and speak on this. Go ahead, Sandy.
Hang on. All right. I
Yeah.
live. All right. Well, I'm also a financial planner and been 30 plus years in insurance matters. Dave, you bring up a good point. My family has multiple trusts because I'm also a parent of a camper. And since our son was adopted and we found out he was disabled, we set up a special trust to take care of our son after we pass. And when you set up a trust, for those that don't know, it is firewalled. It is very difficult to change on purpose. And it is very expensive because every time you make a change, even in a beneficiary or a trustee, you have to copy everybody. And lawyers know how much they bill per hour. I'll just leave that out.
It's well earned.
It is very well earned. And you know what? It works well. Thank you. That's a comment. But whereas a foundation, the fact that the Lions Foundation obviously is a foundation and we can attract funds, and the fact that the camp is a foundation and funds are donated through both foundations and are earmarked for various purposes, that is one of the biggest reasons I can comment why a trust is not the best vehicle, if you will, for what we're trying to do. And that's, you know, for the fact that we're limited on time, that would be my best answer.
Thank you.
Kathleen, do you have anything before we go to the next question, or see if Pam has something else?
Lion Bill Menard wanted to speak.
All right.
Am I there?
Yeah, but not your picture.
Do you really want to see my ugly mug?
I want to see Santa Claus. There you go.
Santa Claus is here. My question is, it's not supposed to have a question, right? The why hasn't a new foundation been generated between the two to put the camp together with the land, the way it was said after your meeting, Phil? I mean, no movement has been gone in that direction since the day that the land has been acquired. And I would think that would be, if the foundation is the way we're supposed to go, why not move in that direction?
My impression, Bill, is the camp board, for whatever reason, didn't want to go. I mean, I can tell you we put it in writing, and you know, anybody. It was
Can't hear you.
It was unsolicited advice, and people.
No, you're sitting back too far, Phil. You need to come up a little. You're too far from your mic. We're not hearing you.
Can you hear me?
No.
Not well.
Is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Bill, you know, from far as I could tell, you know, we made a proposal it was unsolicited advice, and the camp was free to say no. And you know, we didn't take it personally. We thought it was a good proposal, and we didn't push it. We're not in the business of forcing people to do anything. And the camp was free to say no. And I think that's what happened, because I think LFA was on board with it generally. No one, but you know, it just didn't go anywhere.
I'm sorry, I had to mute line Bill for a moment. His breathing was causing the cutoff. So, okay, you're unmuted again, Bill. Please mute yourself in the future. Thank you.
I'll move my microphone up.
Repeat.
I guess my question is, I've been on the board for going on 3 years, and there has been no proposal put to the board since we've acquired the land for that question. The board, as it stands now, has not received anything of that nature. And Kathleen can back it up, or anybody else. The other question I have is, are you seeing my messages to you? I've been sending you chats since the beginning. Yes.
No, I haven't.
I didn't want to interfere with what was going on, so I sent you a series of chats. Anyways, I will unmute or mute myself again, but I'm just looking for, if a foundation is the right way to go, and it does provide the function that we need, and we combine the land and the buildings together under a new foundation that's not either, we could eliminate the issues. I'll shut up.
Kathleen, you want
What was your question? I'm sorry.
to Bill's point?
If there was an entity that existed, was a level playing field that God accomplished what would keep camp healthy and happy, and which was to, you know, culminate in the end of all of this, absolutely would we be open for discussion. Absolutely.
Okay.
I think a level playing field with everyone on an even keel is fantastic.
Okay. Now, Catherine,
Yes.
to me, I'm not going to try to turn this into mediation. I promised Barb I wouldn't, but it seems to me the camp board is worried that this zoning is going to somehow be abused. Is
Yes.
that
I think, yeah, I think that the concern is what could potentially go in around us that would impact the functions of the camp. And I realize that LFA doesn't control what those people do with their land, but that is a concern.
Okay. So so understanding LFA can't control what it doesn't control.
Right.
What can be done to allay your concern, the board's concerns, that something will happen to the camp? I mean, putting it in a foundation would be one thing, right? But in the immediate near future, don't do it now, but just think about what you need.
Okay. I appreciate you not asking me to come up with a fabulous answer on the spot. Thank you.
And I do want to say, when the earlier comments about whether the camp has to move, I know my club has been actively involved with camp for 50 years. Bill Renzo talks about how he put the boards up on the chapel when he was a kid. And from our club talking, we just assume with the encroachment, at some point the camp might want to pick up and move. It's not LFA, I think it's just clubs talking. You know, just seeing Pine Top's a great place to live. A lot of people are moving there. So, all right, Dave, did you have anything?
Truthfully speaking, we would love to be able to have the camp have title to the camp, period. We only would like to go ahead and make sure that we are reimbursed for all the money that we have expended. I was told recently by people from the camp that they have a potential donor that is willing to put up funds to reimburse us for all of our expenses.
We're not going to get into that.
Okay, that's fine.
But I'll tell you, Dave, one thing I'd like LFA to do after this meeting, I'd like you guys to think of what you could do to provide some assurances to the camp board that the zoning won't be misused, which I don't think is going to be hard, but I think you guys should do that.
Let me ask you, what do you mean by the zoning? The zoning is done.
I think there's a worry that because it's been done, that somehow it's going to adversely affect camp operations. Is that right, Bill and Kathy?
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Is the concern that now that the zoning's been done, that that is somehow going to adverse the camp use at this point?
I think it's more the zoning changes that could potentially happen to the property around us.
All right.
Phil, the zoning change that was made on the camp to say, get it to a C1 is for their benefit as much as anything else. Now they can do many, many things that they couldn't do before. Hopefully they'll be able to get these things done.
Yeah. I mean, it's for another time, but let me ask a question for the camp. What is the difference of use that the joint venture owner who owns all the other land could use that land for prior to C1 and have C1? What is the nature of the difference? Because this guy, his company, whatever, owns it. They can do whatever the zoning permits. How is that zoning different before and after the rezoning?
Are you speaking like specifically what it's been zoned or what our understanding was?
My understanding, it was zoned low density residential before. Is that right?
Yes.
You know what? Let Sherman, are you still here? Can you speak? You can speak to this much better than I can.
I'm just trying to figure out what the.
I understand. I'll let Sherman speak so I don't misspeak.
Okay.
Yeah, originally Pinetop Lakeside thought they made it open space. They realized 2 months ago that it's actually low density residential. So that's where we all started from. The 40 acres between us and the go-karts is already commercial. That was done last year. The RV park was recently sold. It is still zoned residential low, along with another 36 acres that are closer to the reservation that is R low. And those people wanted to build, like 3 houses on their 36 acres. Camp Grace is currently R low. So they've got to deal with whatever the restrictions are there. And there was a property at 260 in Wagon Wheel where they tried to make it commercial and the neighbors fought them and the zoning board turned it down. And that's everything I know about in that 344 right now.
Wait. So what Sherman, was the RV park permitted under low density residential?
No, they were going for a RVP zoning, which they got. And then the residents there came up with a referendum to turn that vote down and have it go to a public vote. And when the owner of the RV park heard about that, he pulled the plug and withdrew his RVP application.
Okay. All right. I think Brian says we have some more questions.
Yes, we do. I have a couple, but I'm going to do one because Phyllis, your hand was up, line Phyllis from Sholo. And do you still have your question, or can I move on? I'm unmuting you in case you have your question. Phyllis Clark from Sholo. Do you still have a question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hello?
Yes, I
Okay.
hear you.
I have a couple of questions actually. I've been involved in the Camp Tatiyee campaign from the very beginning myself. I was on the camp board for many, many years. I've got a couple of questions that I'm concerned about. Is first of all, if this land, if LFA retains the land in the foundation and they gain funds or grants from the fund, who would that benefit? Would that benefit Camp Tatiyee or will it be benefiting LFA? Next question is the perimeter of the camp. As not being titled into the camp name, how can we obtain grants to be able to secure the perimeter of the camp to make sure our campers are safe?
Okay.
And then the one other thing that came up was moving the camp. How would we obtain money to even move the camp if we don't own the land? Okay, there you go.
Okay, let me have you repeat the first question and I'll have LFA answer that question.
Who benefits from any funds that are gained from the use of the land title if LFA retains title?
Okay.
If LFA retain title, there's no reason for us to do anything at all as far as going for grants. So we probably wouldn't do any grants at all if we retain the title.
I thought you said earlier that you could use that as far as getting funds.
No, that's the camp could use that for getting funds if the title was transferred to their name.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. That's
the camp. I think everyone.
And then the second question was,
everyone agrees the camp or foundation needs to have title to go get large, sophisticated grants. Everyone agrees.
And that kind of covers the second question about the perimeter. If it was in the camp's name, then we could go out and get monies to secure the camp. And then lastly, again, if it's not in the title of the camp, there's no funds to be able to go move somewhere if that's not in the name of the camp, if it ever happens.
Well, look, Kathy.
That's the end of my questions. If somebody wants to address that.
All right, Kathleen, why don't you start?
I don't feel like there's anything that I can really add. It sounded more like we got it answered and it was statements, so I'm good.
All right, okay. Brian, do you have another question?
Barb has a written question, and then Eddie Richardson is next after that. So Barb, why don't you do your written question first because you've been waiting.
Okay. Darren is asking if the land is owned by all Lions of Arizona, then why does the camp have a lease to use the land? Is there a way that camp can get their name onto the title for the land to help with getting grants?
Sandy.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question. Repeat the question, Floyd, or Phil, please.
About Barb.
Yeah.
If the land is owned by all Lions of Arizona, then why does the camp have a lease to use the land? Is there a way that camp can get their name onto the title for the land to help getting grants?
Oh, okay. Am I still?
Yeah, you're on.
I have three good answers for one good question. So I'll combine them all. The question is, if the land is owned by all the Lions, and the answer is right now the land is titled to Lions Foundation. Back to what Lion Phil said, a foundation is the best vehicle. And we have proposed to both foundations that if we combine into one foundation, both organizations can say they own the land. And what was the third part of your question, Lion Barb?
About getting the title to the land to help with getting grants. So you kind of just answered that.
Right. In other words, we have a foundation. We create a separate foundation, put all the assets into that foundation, managed by both boards. And both boards can say that they're owners. The grant money can pour into that separate foundation, and the problem is solved. And this was brought up several times during the last 2 years. And as well, I think our host explained what had happened. It wasn't approved.
Yeah.
All right, so someone has some background going. Next question. Someone has something going on.
I'm hearing an awful lot of background noise. I'm going to mute some people here. I'm not sure where. Okay, it was Lion Phyllis. I had to mute her down. Lion Phyllis, I had to mute you for a second. You were really breaking up. I'll try one more time to unmute you and try asking again.
I think I was done with my questions, if you can hear me.
I can now. Thank you very much. I need to get the next person. Thank you. Okay, Lion Eddie's been super patient with me, and she is next. I'm going to go ahead and get Lion Eddie. Lion Eddie, I'm going to unmute you right now. You are unmuted. You need to also unmute yourself. You are self-muted. There you go. You're on, Lion Eddie.
Okay, thank you. Am I echoing?
Badly.
Yes.
All right, hold on. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so first understanding is through this entire land exchange, at no time did LFA not want to have Camp Tatia be able to develop. I mean, from day one, we have always wanted and always looked at it as a positive thing, because the main goal was to secure this land for the campers. And I think we're missing that here a little bit. So the goal is we accomplished it. The land is secured. We are the property managers for the Lions of Arizona for this land that's in Pine Top, as well as the Phoenix complex, as well as the Tucson complex. So we are just the property managers. The Lions of Arizona are the ones that decide what they want to do, period. However we go about asking them, however we go about explaining it. But I guess, Kathleen, I'm a little confused, and also with Pam, is the reason you did not want the C1 zoning to go to residential low commercial is because you had no intentions of expanding or developing or any capital. That's why at the council meeting in Pine Top, you were like, we don't need that zoning, we can stay where we're at. But then tonight you're saying you need the actual deed to be in the Camp Tatia's name so that you can go ahead and develop and expand and the camp, etc. So I'm a little confused about that. But I believe for the last 2 years or more, LFA has initiated several meetings, especially
Eddie,
okay.
You're not allowed to do this.
All right, I'm sorry, but I apologize. I guess I need to have what you're drinking. I apologize. But nevertheless, after the attorney suggested, and I'm sorry you're part of that,
Discrimination tonight, period.
I think it should be under foundation.
All right, but if you have a polite question that's not accusatory, we welcome.
No.
Okay,
I have a
Brian,
couple of hands up. Also, you received a question by email, Phil. Do you want to read that, or should I go with these questions here?
who did I get the question from?
John Bliss.
Oh boy, I think he used my old email. Let me.
Because you forwarded it to me, but I'll go ahead and take a question while you're checking. Let's get Lion Fred. You were waiting for your second chance for quite a while, so Lion Fred, you're up. Then I got Lion Pam here. Lion Fred, I've unmuted you, but you're still self-muted.
There we go. You got me now? Okay, the
Yes.
big question I have is, we were right in our club, like that Sunrise Lions was involved in the very early land acquisition movement. And my question is, where did our funding go? And is it being held, or was it part of the partnership and acquisition of the land? And if so, why are we talking about donation of the 40 acres? 44 acres, yeah.
Probably have the LFA answer that first. Dave, you're not on the, Dave, you're muted.
Let me check here. Dave, you are showing as muted. That's from, wait a minute. Okay, you're unmuted, Dave. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. I'm going to let Paul Randall answer that. I think that if I remember even what the question is at this point. Go ahead, Paul.
Can you repeat the question, please, so I can make sure I answer it correctly?
Yes,
Fred, you're
we
still
were
unmuted.
involved. I thought I just,
No, I said you're still unmuted. I've not turned you off, so please ask your question again.
yeah. So I'm good to go. Okay, my question was, we were involved in the very early stages of the land acquisition, and we funded that from our Lions Club, and other clubs did too. And my question is, where did that money go to on the acquisition? And if it was part of the partnership purchase, why are you all saying that he donated 44 acres to Camp Tatiyee? Where did our purchase money go?
Let me see if I can answer it for you. In simple terms, the Lions of Arizona, and we're not talking about LFA or any specific line, we're talking about donated approximately $2 million of the $5.2 million cost that went into the acquisition of the 40 acres. The remaining $3.2 million was raised by LFA. So your money went into, all of the Lions donations went into acquiring the land. Our issue was there weren't enough donations to even come close to acquiring the land at all. And so we had to end up borrowing some extra money. Now, as far as your question about the donation, that's just purely a technical IRS legal standpoint. In other words, we technically could have said we acquired the 40 acres of land, but what the joint venture partner did is he acquired all the land. That meant that we put up a lot of land and didn't get anything for it. So what did we do? He gave us back the 40 acres and gave us a note for the extra land that we put in. And what that meant was we put up about $3.2 million and we got back about 1.6 million, 1.7 million from our joint venture partners. So we still are short $1.5 million. But the reason it was donated was purely a legal issue that worked out in the best interest for the joint venture partner, so he could write it off with the IRS. It didn't affect your donation whatsoever.
Does that answer Do you have a follow-up question to that, or does that answer the question?
Not sure where that money went. I couldn't pick it up. I'm sorry. I don't understand it.
I didn't can you repeat that?
You're asking me to repeat my
Lion, may I?
misunderstanding now? What's
Lion
going
Phil?
on?
Lion Phil, I speak Lion Fred. I think I know what he was asking. Fred was simply asking, is there where is there specifically where the donations went? It went to take care of the land, but is there some place somewhere where that money went? This went to X, this went to Y, this went to Z, and here's where we made up the difference, and this is why we're short over and above what Lions donated. Does that sound about right, Fred?
Okay.
Thank you, Lion Kathleen.
You're welcome. I've known you a long time. I speak Fred.
And it's hard doing it this way when you're not in person.
Okay, Lion. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's all right. I think Kathleen just went ahead and pretty well answered Lion Fred. Basically speaking, all the money went into one pot, and we had to buy land, and we kept buying land and buying land and buying land for the exchange, and we're using money from anywhere we could get to do this. So your money was put together with a lot of other people's money, including a lot of money from LFA. That's about it, basically.
Okay. All right, next question, Brian.
Lion Bill Menard had been asking to speak. So Lion Bill, you had something you'd wanted to say, and I just couldn't get to you to recognize you. So go ahead and unmute yourself, Lion Bill. You're on the panelist side, so you have your own control.
I guess the question is what Fred is asking is, before we get to finishing this all up, I think the Lions of Arizona deserve an audit of what went in, what went out, what was paid with it, and where it came, and it needs to be a forensic audit for 22 years.
Bill,
And
do
we
you know
would,
how much that's going to cost?
yeah.
How
much do you want me? How much do you want me to put in? No, the question is, how much do you want me to put in to get so the Lions know what they're?
If
they
you want to
did.
go back 20 years of forensic audit, even though there's not a lot of transactions, you're probably talking $40,000, $50,000.
We have a lot of auditors in Lions Club, someplace that could make it easier.
All right, what I would do, Bill, is, as you know this from being council chair, is bring it up, but boy, do not hire independent people to do it at rack rate, because it will cost a fortune. Not against it. I think we all need to be transparent. And I don't think LFA would be opposed to it, but it's just be careful before you commit money to it, because you're talking about a lot of money if people aren't going to volunteer their time. Dave?
We have kept very good records of how much money we spent and what we spent it for. I would not be in favor of a forensic audit because, number one, to do it right, we would not use any Lions whatsoever. If you're going to get a forensic audit, you need to have independent people. And as Phil said, it's going to cost you between $40,000 and $60,000. And that money could be used for other things.
So, and that's really not within the scope of this meeting, but Bill, I think if you're familiar enough with accounting records, give Dave a call, go through the records. Because we're all transparent here, so there's no, I don't think there'll be a problem with it. Okay, next question, Dave. Brian.
A minute. Barb has a written question she needs to get to.
Okay. This is from Darren again. He said, my question was not answered. If the land is owned by all the Lions of Arizona, then why does the camp have a lease to use the land?
Let me answer that as a lawyer. Absolutely, you have a lease. Period. You'd be out of your mind not to have a lease with the liabilities that flow from that. You absolutely have to have a lease. Do you want to say, anyone else want to chime in?
No.
Tom Price here, Tom needs to talk up, he's hiding.
This is Sherman.
Yes.
Yes, the lease talks about liability. It talks about a lot of things that you need to have in writing. So yeah, the lease is a necessity. And that's basically all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, next question.
I have one line who's been trying to.
We end in about 5 minutes, so we have a hard 8 o'clock. So
We have a hard stop here, but the next line's been trying to get in for 2 hours, and he finally got into our conference. Lion John Bliss, if you would make it a very fast question, I would be appreciative. I have folks who are waiting to ask questions, but you're a first timer. So please make it a fast question. I'm going to unmute you for a brief question. Lion John, you're self-muted. Please quickly unmute yourself.
Am I good?
Yeah, you're good. Please make it a quick question. Thank you for your patience.
I don't have a question. I have an observation. I joined lines and.
Wait, John, before you start, this is Phil Whitaker. You weren't in at the beginning. We are not allowing statements that are not uplifting. All right.
I'm afraid I'm pretty good at uplifting statements, but I don't have many for this conference.
All right, make it uplifting. We're all here
Okay,
trying
let me get back to where I was. I joined lines in '98. At about the same time, that's when the Tatiyee land campaign started. And I've done a lot of work getting funds for Camp Tatiyee. My wife was on the Camp Tatiyee board. She's the one that came up with the Camp Tatiyee campership program. And we've had a lot of interface. She was the liaison between Camp Tatiyee and the LFA. And we had a serious issue. This goes back to when you guys when LFA had the fire at the place at the Tucson apartment house, and you ended up with the insurance settlement, but it didn't cover the cost of the mold that had to be replaced. And that was about the same time we started collecting donations for the TLC. My wife, being the liaison officer for Camp Tatiyee, attended the meeting, and that was the topic of discussion, the fire. But the offshoot of everything that happened was they decided at that point they were going to take the funds that had been raised for Camp Tatiyee and use it to fix the apartment building because they didn't have enough money at the time. Nobody was consulted. It was just a decision that was made at the LFA. And I've been a very non-ardent supporter of the LFA ever since.
John,
yes.
We're not here to cast aspersions.
You open my mic so I can talk. I talk.
As a lawyer, I'd be shocked if there wasn't insurance to cover some of this.
Well, there was insurance, but the insurance did not cover the mold. And that came from money was being raised for Camp Tatiyee. And I think everybody ought to be aware of that. I talked to my club.
That is not what that's counterproductive to our.
It may not be the problem, but it relates to the overall problem.
Okay. All right, we're not here to talk and cast accusations back and forth. So next question.
I think we're out of time for questions. We only have 3 minutes less unless you would like a final question. I think we're out of time. Bill Menard had a question. I'm sorry. Bill Menard, go ahead.
Based on the last conversation, not the gentleman, but the other one, if the title was in Camp Tatiyee's name, would we need a lease?
No. No.
then therefore we are held hostage by LFA because we now have a lease and a mortgage.
Well,
Yes, we do. I mean, that was one of my previous questions. I text to you, trying to stay out of the conversation. But if it was our name, then we would not need a lease. And they just earlier said we have a lease.
well, there is a lease because it's in the name of LFA. You have to have a lease. If the camp buys it, they don't need a lease, but I'll tell you legally, you should always have the land and the operations by separate entities. You just should, as part of just risk management. And then you should have a lease. That's just, I'm just telling you, Bill, that's how you do it. But if you owned it, you wouldn't own the lease to LFA, and LFA has been, this was set up way before my time, but LFA was supposedly to get reimbursed. And that's what hopefully that'll get resolved in the next month. Hopefully that'll get resolved.
Everybody's talking about when they got involved in this. I've been involved in this since the day it started in Tucson in '85. So, but I've been in and out. So we likewise have a vested interest in what's going on here. And thank you for your consideration.
No, thank you. I'm sorry I didn't get your text. I don't know what happened to them. I got Brian's, I got Joyce's.
They're part of the chat from the beginning.
Are they really?
Yeah, right at the beginning of the chat, I started sending you bits of wisdom, so we'll call them.
They don't show up. I'm really sorry.
I can go back on my screen and see them all. But I guess the question, Brian, is, are the chats part of the video or the record?
The ones I write are saved to my computer. I do not see your private chats. So like the one I just sent to my panelists and all, just thanking you guys for your tech work and being supportive of what I was doing, would be in the record as far as what goes saved. But anything private, such as what I might want to send to Phil as an organizer, will not be in the record.
But before we end, I'd
Maybe
like
on my computer, but otherwise, sorry, Phil. Go ahead.
Before we end, I'd like to ask Everett, since it was his letter that started it, if he has any questions he'd like to ask to wrap up.
Okay, in listening to this, I guess the thing that hasn't come out as to why the LFA was in favor of the RV park back in the summer, because I think therein lies some of the uncertainty with the Camp Tatiyee board. Because if that's a pattern that's going to continue, you know, if these other zoning issues around Camp Tatiyee are totally up to the town of Pinetop Lakeside, it seems that you know, all Lions should stay out of them and not come to, you know, not be in favor of a particular point of view.
Let's ask the question for LFA. If they were involved in favor of this RV park, and if yes, why?
Basically speaking, the joint venture partner asked to have the zoning changed so he could do some things with the property. We did not object to that. We felt that what he was asking was reasonable. So they asked for some zoning changes and we did not object to them.
Well, there was support voiced at the town council meeting from, as the community development person said, the Lions of Arizona, which I got up and clarified was the Lions Foundation of Arizona, which is a state project of one of many state projects. So I think therein lies the uncertainty between, maybe the crux of the issue between the two state boards. You know, what is LFA being, are they proposing a zoning that will benefit the partner developer, even though that we understand there's a relationship there? And is that going to go forward with the LFA supporting future zoning requests?
I would say that we will do everything we can to help the camp. If it helps them to have something, a neighbor that's decent, we'll go ahead and support it. Right now, all we want to do is get this out of our hair and get the property to the camp and have the camp go ahead and get our reimbursement for any funds we have, and we're done. The camp can do whatever they want.
Let me say, Brian has someone else with a question, and we're over time, so we have to wrap it up. I don't want to be rude, but.
Yeah, I've got two people who need to go very quickly. The first one has not spoken before, so I'm going to let him go first. That's Lion Lon. Please ask your question quickly, as we're really short on time. You're
Lion,
unmuted.
what club are you with?
He's not unmuted yet.
Okay.
There. Hello, everybody. My name's Lion Lon. I'm with the Buckeye Club. I'm also on the LFA Foundation. Two things. My question is, and it's basically a statement question. Camp Tatiyee had a lease through the Forest Service. How has that changed your way of requesting money when you had a lease through them? Now you have a lease through us. The other thing
Lion
is,
Sherman?
I think we all need to realize that this is 2020. A lot of things have happened and a lot of things have changed over the last 37 years.
So let's have Sherman answer that question real quickly because we're out of time. So I apologize.
Okay.
Let's have
that's okay.
answer that really quickly.
This is Sherman. The Forest Service is a U.S. government agency. The grantors understand that. They can't do anything. I mean, look how long it took them to sell it to us. So the title to it was always steady. It wasn't going to get pulled from under anyone's foot. So that is different than a Lions Foundation that can change things quickly and, do things that the Forest Service can't possibly do, like sell or subdivide or anything like that. So that's the difference between those two owning.
Okay, and then next question, Lon, but keep it short.
I think this will be our final question, Phil, unless you want me to do otherwise. And
No.
Pam Swanson had a brief question, so I've unmuted her, and I think that'll be our final one unless you want to direct otherwise. So Pam, I unmuted you, so if you want to ask it quickly, please unmute yourself. Lion Pam? She is not unmuting. Wait a minute. Okay, Pam, now you are. You're unmuted. I got you.
Yeah, okay. I wanted to respond to Lion Eddie about the reason for the funding. The funding has always been an issue. There's never been a time that the funding and our name being on that wasn't an issue. When we were dealing with the town council, I talked about the impact of COVID and how long it would take for us to get back up to full capacity, and that I didn't anticipate any changes for quite a while. That's what that was. Lastly, I have one last question. Lion Dave, you said that you'd love to get us out of your hair, and I understand. And as much as we love you as Lions, I think we feel the same way. But can we get a long-term written agreement to purchase the land? Because that would help Tatiyee get funding.
Pam, that's for another time.
When that could solve our problems.
That is not, this is an informational meeting.
Okay.
So that's it's a good comment, but it's an informational meeting. And Barb is tied up. I'm tied up. I can't sit here and drink anymore. I won't be able to drive home, and I'll have to give an Uber expense to the treasurer for MD21. So I want to thank everyone for participating. If you want to have another one of these, I'm happy to do it. If you'll have me as a moderator, I won't be offended if you say get rid of Whitaker and put someone else in. Follow up with Barb if you want to do another informational meeting. The goal of this meeting was to be informational. That was the goal. So hopefully we satisfied our goal for most folks. All right, so we're going to say thank you for everyone. Remember, we're all on the same team. All on the same team. We all have to we have one goal, one team. All right, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
All right, thanks. Waiting for Brian to turn this off. Yeah.